theory in demographic transition. So the demographic transition theory is generalized description of the changing pattern of mortality, fertility, and growth rates as societies move from one demographic regime to another. The term was first coined by the American demographer Frank W. Notenstein in the mid-20th century, but it has since been elaborated and expanded upon by many others. So in demographic transition theory, it needs a long-term care in health services. So demographic transitions are changing the health needs of the population, care for the chronically ill, and for people with disabilities. It is a growing challenge in practically all societies. The word demography is the study of populations, especially with reference to size and density, fertility, mortality, growth, age distribution, migration, and vital statistics, and the interaction of all these with social and economic conditions. It measures based on vital statistics, it measures trends over time, it includes indices such as fertility, birth and death rates, rural urban residential patterns, marriage and divorce rates, migrations, and their interaction with social and economic conditions. Demographic transition is a long-term trend of declining birth and death rates, resulting in substantive change in the age distribution of a population. There are 5 stages characteristics of demographic transition. First, the traditional. It is high and balanced birth and death rates. Second, the transitional, falling death rates and sustained birth rates. Third is the low stationary. It is the low and balanced birth and death rates. Fourth is the graying of the population, increased proportion of elderly people and a result of decreasing birth and death rates and increasing life expectancy. And lastly, the regression, low birth rates, migration or increasing death rates among young adults due to trauma, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome or AIDS, early cardiovascular disease or CVD, mortality, or war can also result in a study of declining population. So why is the demographic transition theory important? The demographic transition has enabled economics to convert a larger portion of the gains from factors accumulation and technological progress into growth of income per capita.
So, to better and to further understand about the concept of demography and its effect to global population, let's now discuss the demographic transition model. So, the demographic transition model has been around for more than 50 years, having started in the middle of the 20th century, and it is the result of research on population development and growth in several nations around the world. Moreover, the demographic transition model is predicated on the idea that there is substantial correlation between birth and death rates, also in industrialization and economic growth. The paradigm of the demographic transition consists of 4 crucial phases. Additionally, there is a 5th stage that is a little less well established. So later on, we will know why. And also there is a 6th stage, which is much more recent discovery in this field, shows how the demographic transition model is still developing and changing. So in order to be specific, let's discuss it one by one. To begin with stage 1, also known as high population growth potential. So the stage 1 is the high population growth potential. In this stage, generally, both births and deaths are extremely high in this pre-industrial culture. The ratio of births to deaths is practically equal. The population doesn't increase very much because of sickness and malnutrition, because there isn't enough food, good medical care, or sufficient sanitations and hygiene. So, the majority of people live in rural areas and are mostly involved in agriculture. This agricultural emphasis results in higher birth rates and starts to have larger families because having more children is both an economic advantage and a status symbol. Though life expectancies are generally short and the poor have the greatest death rates of any demography. So the next stage is the stage 2, the population explosions. So in this stage, the nation starts to see social and economic progress. At this point, death rates rapidly declined and lifespan increased with improved medical treatment, more effective sanitation and hygiene, and more productive agriculture. So and then subsequently greater food supply. However, the birth rate does not decrease at the same time. It does not increase but rather remains high. Population growth is accelerated because birth rates are significantly higher than death rates. So the next stage is the stage 3, the population growth starts to level off. So in this stage, the birth rates are currently declining. There are several different social elements that can be responsible for this, including the access to contraception, better pay, fewer households are engaged in agriculture, meaning less need for a large families to work on farms. And also the education and the status of women have improved. So the population growth here starts to slow down compared to the second stage as a result of this reduction in birth rates, as the death rates continue to decline with additional advancements in health and sanitations. So the next stage is the stage 4, the stationary population. At this point, the rates of births and death are both low. If a result as birth rate falls below the replacement level, or as families are having an average of less than 2 children each, the population may stay the same or even decline. We anticipate that the generation born in the second stage of the demographic shift is currently aging. In the meantime, these aging people of society must be supported by the potentially declining working population. So next and the last stage is the stage 5, or further changes in birth rates. So it's a little less certain at this point. So some demographers predict that at this point fertility rates will move to either above or below replacement levels. So some analysts argue that fertility rates will rise, while others contend the contrary. As a result of decreasing birth rates, population in China and Australia are predicted to decline, but those in the United States, India, Mexico are predicted to grow. So additional stage have also been suggested. This is a contentious topic and theorists still have a lot of work to do to reach a consensus within the demography field.
Analyze the political, economic, social, and cultural factors underlying the social movement of people. And now let's talk about political factors. Political factors that influence the migration of people is typically based on political identifications, civil war, or policy changes. In economic factors, it pushes people to migrate is related to labor standards, unemployment, and the overall standards of country's economy. Some factors include higher wage, better opportunities, and higher standards of living. Other reasons is the cultural factors. It is usually the reason why people is moving because of slavery, political instability, ethnic cleansing, famine, and war. So people who choose to flee are forced to flee. As a result of these problems are often refugees. Now let's talk about social factors. It is ultimately the underlying factors is including poverty, population growth, and the massive displacement of people. And it must be addressed to ensure sustainability, global capacity, and prevent and control the emerge and spread of infectious diseases. All of these factors are the reason why do people migrate, and it is one part of global trend. And this reason is globalization. As we all know, globalization is one of the most active process, and it is a never-ending process because we are now globally integrated and dependent. World is something nature's evolution, and this movement is not an independent phenomena. Instead, it is a symptoms of dangerous live in the ever-growing organism, and that is society.
So here are the example of political, economic, cultural, and social factors that underlying the global movement of people. First is political. The example of this is about a agriculture policy. It is both a push and pull factor for migration. Some of other countries there are these, and one of the example country is in India, because India has implemented agriculture policy that would have a severe influence on its farmer and force them to migrate elsewhere in search of work. Next is in economic. One of the example is about low agriculture income, that people they move to other country to find a better work or follow a particular career path, or maybe they move in search of better economic. Next is about cultural. Migration may occur for cultural reasons such as the pursuit of education or religious freedom. People may also relocate to locations where their culture previous inhabitants have already made their home. And last one is about a social factors. Example of this is about a lack of services. People migrate for a better quality of life.
Hi everyone! Ngayon, i-discuss namin sa inyo ang sub-topic ng aming topic na which is display first-hand knowledge of the experiences of OFWs. You can search for experiences of OFWs and relate them to your topic. So, let's begin. Globalization has created a new reality for OFWs. There has been a feminization of Philippines migration, and OFWs have based their identity on what they can do for their family. OFWs know who they are and do not care how others perceive them. Because of the importance the OFWs place on the welfare and well-being of their families, labels are of little significance to them.
OFW or Overseas Filipino Workers are regarded as our modern-day heroes because not only contribute our country's economic growth through remittance, but also voluntarily give up the opportunity to be with their families, to choose to work abroad in order to provide for their families, regardless of the risks they will face in a foreign land.
So, Filipino migrants experience marginalization in two ways. First, they become socially and structurally invisible in relation to the host society. Even though they have college degrees and professional backgrounds in the Philippines and may have prominent roles in their family and community. They disappear into other people's homes, hospitals, nursing homes, manufacturing centers in other countries. So second, they experience a subaltern existence. The pain of marginality is made acute by being regarded as mere instruments of policy and by being subjected to ethnic, economic, and social differentiation. Migrant works are often seen as mere objects to advance the interests of both the country of destination and the country of origins, without regard to the personal and family fragmentations and disempowerment that these products. So here are the common challenges that OFWs face abroad and ways on how to cope with them. So first is homesickness. Homesickness is one of the biggest challenges of an OFW. It is distressing when they miss important events, special occasions, and not seeing their kids grow up. But good thing nowadays, it is easy to communicate with their loved ones through social media. Then second is communication gap and culture differences. It can be exhausting to work in another nation and interact with the local and communicate with them. Even if it could take some time to adjust and adapt, keep studying their language and become familiar with their culture. Given the Given that knowledge is at your fingertips, there are the several options for how.
Next, we have financial. Most Filipinos think that working abroad will earn them big money. But sometimes, they don't receive the high income to their families back home. They need to make sure and even neglect their basic needs while living abroad. Instead of buying expensive gadgets for the family or splurging on vacation in the Philippines, remember to set a budget and save money before spending. Next, we have maltreated and other possible risks. So we have here stories told by OFW about how they're maltreated abroad. As an OFW, keep these three things in mind. First, know the location of the Philippine Embassy. Second, know the nearest offices that oversee the needs of Filipino workers abroad. And the third one, be aware of the Republic Act number 10022, which states that an act amending Republic Act number 8042, otherwise known as the Migrants Worker and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995, as amended, further improving the standards of protection and promotion of the welfare of migrant workers.
So, the effect of overseas Filipino workers in their children is that they sacrifice a lot to provide a better life for their families in the Philippines. They spend holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas, New Year, and other important occasions away from their families. It has an effect of the children of OFWs. No money can replace the hug of a mother and father. No toy or balikbayan box can take the place of the quality time spent together with one's family. So that's all. Thank you.
Today, I will be going to relate the experience of OFW into global demography and global migration. So what those if your mind when you hear the word demography? It is the statistical study of human population with demography examine the size structure of movements of population over space and time. So basically, we are talking about the human population, the sizes and composition, the contribution of the people around the world, and answering that, bakit marami ang tao dito, bakit marami ang tao dyan, bakit kaunti dito, and by that, demography will be going to understand and what are the motivation and why it is happen after at first. So dahil sa pagdami ng tao sa globalization ay lumilikha ito ng bagong strategies is like kapag ang bansa ay hindi gaano malakas ang mga produkto ay dumadagdag pa ang pagdami ng tao ay mas lalo nahihirapan ito lalo na sa panahon natin ngayon na nagmamahalan ang mga bilihin at tumataas ang mga bayarin. Especially na sa susunod. It's because of the no proper job and the most reason of this not family planning. So there is the globalization migration due to the property of life and the population of going to place to find a better life even now. If you have an education, pwede kang magtrabaho doon at kahit wala kang pinag-aralan ay pwede kang magtrabaho pa rin doon. And the meaning of this migration, the crossing of the boundary of political and administrative unit for a maximum period of time. So ang pagsasakripisyo na isang magulang o ng tao ay patungo sa ibang bansa ay isang malaking trabaho at malaking sakripisyo ito upang matugunan ang tawag ng pamilya upang magkaroon ng magandang kinabukasan ang mahal sa buhay. For me, OFW right now is called to be hero because of their hard work and sacrifices.